so glad to be with you again. I've been looking forward to this, and I want to apologize for not knowing my schedule far enough ahead of time last week to let you know that I was going to do it a day early this week. Hi Megan, hi to everyone who's popping on. As you're popping on, let me know what you're drinking. Leave your first name in your comment, and let's share what's nourishing us and warming us this morning. I am drinking one of my favorite teas, Honey Bush. Hi Emily, hi Sev, hi Megan, and Angie's drinking water. Great to see you all here today. Joy is drinking green tea. Good morning to you, Emily. Well, you guys keep sharing what you're drinking and your first names in the comments, and I want to welcome all of you for Ask Wardee. This is the show where I take your traditional cooking questions. Usually happens on Wednesdays, but because of Thanksgiving, I'm taking Wednesday off tomorrow. So we're doing Ask Wardee today. We have a hot chocolate, we have a water and decaf with Lisa. Fantastic. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for everyone who's coming in here live, and also welcome to anyone who's checking out the replay later, either on Periscope or on AskWardee.tv. Tammy's drinking coffee. Cinnamon chai tea with cream, Sev is drinking. Ooh, yum. I wish I could have a taste of that. So I'm thinking you all are going to be busy tomorrow too, getting ready for Thanksgiving if you're in the United States. So I'm glad that you're joining me today. Okay, I want to go through a couple notes here. Welcome again. I'd love to know where you're coming from. Let's see, almost bedtime in Kenya. Ashley, welcome from Kenya. What an honor that you're here. So yes, please drop in the comments where you're tuning in from and share your first name, and let me know if this is your first time here or if you're returning and you've been on Ask Wardee before. Joy is coming from Muskogee, Oklahoma. Did I say that right? I think I've asked you that before, Joy. I'm not sure how to say Muskogee. Does anybody else know? Oh, I got it right. Okay, great. So yes, are you new here? Or have you been to Ask Wardee before? Tammy is in Pennsylvania. Lisa's here for the second time. Well, welcome back, Lisa. This is so fun. I did send out an email yesterday to Traditional Cooking School subscribers, so I was hoping we'd get some new faces on here today. Alice is coming from Minnesota. She's been here before. Lisa, I don't know if you're telling me thank you, but you're welcome. Ashley's here for the first time. Well, let me just tell you how this works if it is your first time. So you tap the screen to give hearts, and I love seeing hearts. I love the colors too. Right now we've got some peach and green, not my favorite colors. Maybe we'll start to get some bright colors in there. Purple, good. So you know, be liberal with the hearts. I love it. You can also, if you're live here, you can tap the Perry guy, and then that'll give you some instructions for sharing. I think you tap and then you swipe right if you're on iPhone and down if you're on Android, and you can share. If you haven't already followed me at Trad Cook School, be sure to do that. And then if you're on the Periscope app, on your phone, it'll, chime or whatever when I'm on air, and so that'll be fun to tune in with me. If you're watching this later on Periscope, you can still tap the screen to share hearts, so don't worry if you're not live, and you can share by swiping right or down. And I love shares and I love the hearts, so thank you so much. And when you're commenting today, as we discuss the question and other things, make sure to include your first name, because I can see it much better if you type it than if it's your handle. The handle's pretty faint. And thank you, S. Fremer, for sharing on Facebook. Welcome, 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 welcome to everybody. The hearts are turning purple. I love that. I have this theory that the hearts match the colors on the screen. So now we're getting blue, pink, purple. Love that. Lisa, thank you for sharing on Facebook. Okay, so I do want to start with an introduction. For those that don't know me, I'm Wardee Harmon from TraditionalCookingSchool.com. I'm the author of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Fermenting Foods, as well as many other ebooks. Well, The Complete Idiot's Guide is a print book, but I also have many other ebooks on my site, Traditional Cooking School, on many topics of traditional cooking, like sourdough and cheese making and dehydrating and fermentation and all kinds of things. I love traditional cooking, and I love that you're all here on this journey with me. Traditional cooking, a return to being mindful and intentional about the way we prepare quality whole ingredients. That's what traditional cooking is. just transformed our family's health, reversing food allergies, seasonal allergies, giving us back energy, reversing mineral deficiencies, helping digestion, and so many other things. And if you're here and you love to cook from scratch, traditional cooking is another way of cooking from scratch that doesn't take any more time. It's just a little more purposeful. You start things earlier. Foods often cook themselves with soaking, sprouting, sourdough. So it's really a wonderful process that doesn't take more time if you're already in love with the kitchen and you already recognize that food is nourishing and that food can be healing or damaging to our bodies. And I love bringing traditional cooking back into the mainstream, and I love that you're all here to join me on this journey. The purpose of Ask Wardee each Wednesday, today, Tuesday, because of Thanksgiving, is to answer your questions about traditional cooking. And so I have a question from Inez today. And if you have a question that comes to mind that's related, you can pop it in the comments and I'll add it, or I'll address it at the end if it's on topic. If it's a different topic, then let's get it in the queue. So you can tweet at Trad Cook School, the handle's right behind me. Be sure to use the hashtag AskWardee. If you're not on Twitter, no big deal. Email Wardee, W-A-R-D-E-E, at askwardee.tv, and you can just make sure to include either the hashtag AskWardee or just let us know that it's for Ask Wardee and we'll add it to the queue. I love receiving your questions, and I just can't tell you how fun it is to hop on Periscope each week and visit with you kind of in person. That's how I feel about it. And we drink our tea together or whatever beverage you're drinking, and we can visit and chat about these wonderful, healing, nourishing topics. Okay, so I want to get into Inez's question this week. First, I do want to make sure you all know that I have a free set of videos for you. If you go to tradcookschool.com/free-vids, you'll be able to sign up for 5 free traditional cooking videos. I'm going to leave that on the screen while I describe it. If you need to take a screenshot, please do. If you haven't already signed up for these, please do. They are 5 videos from inside my online traditional cooking school. They're completely free, no obligation to continue, to give you some of the fundamental techniques of traditional cooking, the ones that really, really transformed our health. And I'm just thrilled to give them to you because I really want to introduce you to traditional cooking and see what it does for you and your family. So once again, tradcookschool.com/free-vids is where you can sign up for free for those 5 videos from inside my online classes. I hope you take advantage of that. All right, so everybody good? Everybody take a sip. Hope you got your feet up, and let's talk about Inez's question. So this is what Inez wrote. She said, I would like to know if this particular process is something you're aware of and have tried yourself. I watched a YouTube video that showed the soaking process of the grain, but skipped the dehydrating drying process. She put the soaked grains into the blender, then proceeded to add the sourdough starter and other ingredients. Your thoughts, please, Inez. I love this question, and I'd love to talk about it, so we're going to talk about it today. In the comments, if you're here, let me know if you have heard of the blender batter soaking method. And make sure to include your first name and a thumbs up if you have. You can also give a thumbs up if you've tried it. I'd like to know if you've heard of it or if you've tried it. Has anybody here heard of it or tried it? The blender batter soaking method. I'd love to know if anybody's on the same page already before I jump in here. So Angie says no. All right. Anybody else? Thank you for answering in the negative, Angie. I know I said give a thumbs up. But you can say no too, like Angie did. Sev says she'd put her feet up, but her boss might not appreciate that. Well, I'm glad he's okay with you watching. That's great. So you're at work and tuning in. I love that. So Gardening Diva says, I'm listening. It's new to me. Lisa said it's all new to me. Okay. Well, this is going to be exciting. I think you're going to really like it. These kind of recipes, I call them the blender batter method. And I was first introduced to it through Sue Gregg. I don't know if you guys know about Sue Gregg, but many years ago when we got into whole food cooking, even before traditional cooking, we got into whole food cooking, just the idea that we should eat whole foods, not processed foods. And Sue Gregg is a pioneer in really whole grain baking. And so And she's a pioneer also because she makes it really, really easy. And a lot of her grain-based recipes are batter blender recipes. So that's where I was first introduced to it. And if you search the internet for blender batter recipes, you'll find unsoaked, just where you blend it up and cook it. In fact, one of the Trim Healthy Mama recipes is where you blend rolled oats with cottage cheese and egg whites, and you make a high protein kind of low carb pancake, but you blend it instantly and cook it. Well, the oats have not been soaked, and the reason we soak grains is to make them more nutritious and digestible. So when you're surfing the internet and looking for blender batter recipes, pay attention to whether it's soaked or not, or whether it's sourdough or not, or whether the grains are put in and they've been sprouted, because soaking, sprouting, souring, in that order are the traditional methods that are effective in reducing anti-nutrients and making grains more digestible and nutritious. And when I say that order, soaking, sprouting, fermenting, they're in that order of effectiveness. Soaking is the least effective, it still is effective. Sprouting next, sourdough, the most effective. So, next time you're thinking about this method and you're on Google or whatever, type in blender batter pancakes, blender batter waffles, blender batter muffins, blender batter breads. And what this is you're combining all your ingredients in the blender and whizzing them together, and then that batter then becomes, you bake it or fry it or whatever. But what I want to talk to you today is how to use that blender batter method with soaking, sprouting, or fermenting to make it so it's not instant, but it's traditional in the sense that we use traditional methods to prepare the grains, whatever you're using, rice, oats, wheat, kamut, spelt, einkorn, emmer, whatever you're using to make it nutritious and digestible. So everybody on the right page, on the same page with me, maybe you said before you didn't know about it, but now that I've described it, is it ringing any bells? Can you think of any recipes you may have tried where you're combining ingredients in the blender and then, frying your pancakes or pouring the batter into muffin tins and baking them? I see lots of hearts flowing. I love that. We're back to peach and green though. Let's get some purple and pink in there. Everybody on the same page? Okay, so I wanted to talk to you. You guys, purple, blue, pink, teal, I love it. Red. Okay, so I want to talk to you now about how to use blender batter methods, but make them nutritious and digestible, either through soaking, sprouting, or fermenting. And Lisa, you said, can you explain sprouting? If you could save that for the end, I'll touch on sprouting. So we have the three methods, soaking, sprouting, and sourdough, of preparing grains for digestion. You know what, I'm just going to answer that right now, Lisa. So sprouting is where you soak whole berries, einkorn, wheat, or whatever, overnight, drain them, and let them sprout. If you put a seed in the ground and it gets moist, it'll sprout, right? Well, you're doing the same thing in your kitchen. And that process converts complex carbohydrates to simple. It reduces anti-nutrients, deactivates enzyme inhibitors, and so your sprouted grain is actually more nutritious for you than if it was unsprouted. And so you can take that sprouted grain and you can just blend it up into like a mash or a batter and bake it, or you can dehydrate it and then mill it into flour and you have sprouted flour. Okay, Lisa's saying, okay, good. I'm glad that's ringing a bell and making sense. So the blender batter recipes are really fun, and they can be they're fun because they're easy. Just think about it. You're dumping all these ingredients in a blender, whizzing it, and then baking. How much easier could that be? Well, it's almost nearly, it is as easy to use traditional methods. And so I am going to just give you kind of 4 kind of ways that you might see blender batter recipes with traditional methods of soaking, sprouting, or sourdough. Okay, so 4 scenarios here. First, you can do it with flour. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your flour and you're going to take a liquid and some acid, or a liquid and some sourdough starter, and you're going to whiz it in the blender and then let it stay in the blender overnight. And then the next morning, or 7 to 8 hours later, you add the rest of the ingredients, oils, eggs, spices, leavenings, whatever, you whiz again, and then you proceed with the recipe. So in between mixing the flour with liquid and acid, you have this period of 7 to 8 hours or overnight where the acid or the sourdough starter works on the flour to prepare it for good digestion and nutrition. Then you proceed with the recipe. So you're just adding a break in there. So you can actually modify unsoaked blender batter recipes that are out there on the internet simply by just combining those initial ingredients first, add an acid if it needs it, give it some soaking time, then proceed. So you want soaked or blender batter pancakes, you do it the night before and then let it soak overnight, then you're mixing it in the morning. So that's one scenario where you do flour. The second scenario is similar, where you're actually taking the whole grain. So whole grain or rolled. So it could be rolled oats or steel cut oats or rice or einkorn or spelt or wheat, you know, gluten-free or with gluten. You're taking the whole grain that has not been ground into flour, and you're combining it with liquid and acid and giving it and blending it and giving it a soaking time, 7 to 8 hours or overnight, and then you proceed with the recipe. That's scenario number 2. Scenario number 3, remember I was just answering for Lisa earlier, if you sprout your grains ahead of time, which is a very simple process, takes a day and a half to 2, and you rinse a couple times basically. So it's very little hands-on time, but it does take a couple days for it to sprout itself. Well, you can take that sprouted grain or sprouted, well, let's start with the sprouted grain, sprouted whole grains. You can combine that with liquid and all the other ingredients for the recipe in the blender, whiz it all up, and you can proceed immediately because the sprouting took care of the preparation of the grain for good digestion and nutrition. And so you don't have to add a soaking time because that was the sprouting time prior. And so the fourth scenario is the converse of that, where you sprout your grain, you dehydrate it, mill it into flour, and then your sprouted flour becomes part of a blender batter recipe. It's kind of so simple, isn't it? What do you guys think? Are you following along? Are you getting it? And let me know, give me a thumbs up. Thank you for all the hearts. I see some people are popping in and out. I hope that doesn't mean you're not having sound or video. I hope that means you aren't having sound or video problems. We've got a thumbs up. Thank you. Great. We got a you are clear. Good. Lisa's saying I like it. Okay, good. So Julia says sounds wonderful. We've got a thumbs up. Good. Okay, so if you're interested in this, you could search for Sue Gregg's whole grain baking books. They're on Amazon. They're also available at her site, which is suegregg.com. It's SUEGREGG.com. There's also all kinds of bloggers out there who've tried it and blogged about it, so you could Google blender batter recipes. I want to give you a couple notes about that. So look for the blender batter recipes. If it's not soaked, do what I was talking about earlier, add a soaking stage. It might call for all these ingredients to be blended together. Well, the only ones you need for the soaking that are important for the soaking is the liquid and acid and the grain. And the acid could be sourdough starter, but basically it's a tablespoon per cup of liquid. So if it calls for 1 cup of milk or water or yogurt or kefir or whatever, add a tablespoon of sourdough starter, raw apple cider vinegar, lemon juice with the grain or flour, and leave everything else to the end, because other ingredients, fats, salt, leavenings, they're not only, well, leavenings will get used up, so then they'll be ineffective, especially baking soda, but they can interfere with the soaking process. So if you're finding a recipe on the internet, you're redoing it, just cut it down to the basics that are required for the soaking stage. Another thing to look for is, I don't know that your regular blender is going to work very well. I think that, there are some kind of normal blenders that have heavier duty capabilities. So you'd want to research whether it's capable of grinding whole grains, for instance. If you're doing a blender batter with flour, probably a regular blender is going to be okay. But if you're doing with whole grains, you want a heavy duty blender, or a blender that at least has some good reviews on it. People say they're doing that. Now, if you're in the market for a heavy duty blender, you cannot go wrong with a BlendTec or a Vitamix. And they are workhorses, power horses, so versatile in the kitchen. Can do this and so many other things. So tradcookschool.com/Vitamix, Vitamix, or tradcookschool.com/BlendTec, BlendTec. Those are awesome machines. And Sev is saying they are amazing. Yes, they're awesome. So you're really going to excel at this type of technique if you have a good blender like this. And unless you're using flour, a food processor isn't going to work. You can do a food processor if it's a flour-based batter, but if it's a whole grain-based, whole grain, like whole rice or oats or wheat or whatever, and in the food processor, it's not going to get it fine enough to have like a batter, just like you mix flour and liquids together. Okay, so those are some notes if you're doing your own searching. I do want to give you 2 basic recipes here. These are just basic. You can use them and spring off them in any direction with flavors and add-ins or whatever. Gardening Diva, would you soak first or blend dry grains first? If you, both, because the thing about blender batter here is that you're combining your flour or your grain with liquid and acid, blending it and then letting it soak overnight. Make sense? So I'm going to give you 2 recipes here, basic recipes. By the way, at askwardee.tv, within 24 hours, this recording will be up with these recipes spelled out. So just make a note within 24 hours to go to askwardee.tv and look for episode 005, and then you'll have these recipes I'm about to give you verbally spelled out, okay? And I saw that somebody has a new Vitamix and is enjoying it. Good. And Gardening Diva, good. Yep, you can stop by for the recipes later. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, if you could take a moment and tap the screen with hearts or share this, I would love it, dearly appreciate it. So let's do a basic pancake waffle recipe using whole grains. Thank you guys for the hearts. So the basic pancake waffle recipe is you have 1 cup of liquid, which can be any liquid, any milk, non-dairy milk, water, kefir, buttermilk, whatever, a liquid. 1 cup of that. If it's not already a soured product like kefir or yogurt, you want to add a tablespoon of some acid or sourdough starter. The acid being apple cider vinegar or lemon juice or sourdough starter, okay? So 1 cup of liquid. If it's not already soured, also add a tablespoon. You need 1 cup of grain or a mix of grains. Like a really nice combination is half oats and half rice. But anyway, 1 cup of grains. And you blend that in your blender, high-powered blender, and then you let it soak overnight. Then, or 7 to 8 hours. Then it's baking time, right? So you're preheating your griddle or your waffle iron. Sev is saying, would water kefir work? Yes, I believe it would. I believe that would be good. So you're preheating your griddle or waffle iron, and now you're adding to the blender the rest of the ingredients. So an egg and additional liquid so it will circulate. Every grain is going to be different on, you know, the amount of liquid it absorbs. So you start with the 1 cup, but the next day you may be adding more so it circulates well, okay, to be a good batter consistency. And you're also going to add a 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of sea salt, depending on taste, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, but you can also, a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt and a 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of baking soda, vanilla, cinnamon, other spices. If you want a little bit of sweet, you could add a little dry sweetener or wet sweetener. If you're adding wet sweetener, then realize it's going to make it more liquidy. So just know that up front that you may not add as much liquid in the previous stage because you're going to add a liquid sweetener now. And blend. And then you're going to fry as usual. Those are your blender batter waffle pancakes basic recipe. Once again, I'm going to have this at the show notes for you. AskWardee.tv, episode 005, within 24 hours. Now here's a basic soaked blender muffins. And where the previous recipe, I gave it to you with a whole grain base, this basic soaked blender muffins is an example of a basic recipe where it's a flour base. So whatever flour you're using. And this makes about 2 dozen muffins, okay? It's a basic recipe. You need 3 cups of flour and 2 cups of liquid. So 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of liquid. If the liquid, once again, any liquid, any milk, almond milk, coconut milk, real milk, dairy milk, it could be water, it could be kefir, yogurt. If it's not already soured like kefir or yogurt, you want to add 2 tablespoons of an acid or sourdough starter because that makes it a sour liquid. And the grain preparation needs sour. Making sense, everybody? So you blend that and then you let it soak overnight or 7 to 8 hours. Now it's baking time. You're preheating your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and to your blender you're adding your sweetener, which is 2/3 cup of maple syrup or honey, and of course this is to taste. 3 eggs, 2 teaspoons baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon sea salt, and 1/4 cup of lightly melted coconut oil or butter. And then whatever cinnamon or spices that you want for taste. So ginger's really nice, cinnamon's really nice, cloves, a little bit of nutmeg, depending on what kind of flavor you want. And you're going to blend that into a muffin batter. It's going to be thicker than the pancake batter. Now at this point you can do add-ins like chopped nuts or dried fruit or chocolate chips or whatever. And then you're putting it into your muffin cups and baking for 12 to 15 minutes till they're done, and that makes 2 dozen muffins. So those are 2 basic blender batter soaking recipes. What do you think? You guys going to try those? It's kind of inspiring me because Thanksgiving coming up, we could have a yummy Thanksgiving morning breakfast of pancakes or muffins. Gardening Diva is saying yum. Good. Okay, so just a reminder, the recipes will be in the show notes, askwardee.tv, look for episode 005, Sev is saying definitely. I did find a couple other recipes on the internet for you that are already include soaking, and so a banana muffins that use whole grain, Shelly says sounds wonderful, good, and pumpkin pancakes using flour. So at the notes for this, within 24 hours I'll have those 2 links for you, so those are tried and true recipes. Let's see. What time is it? How are we doing on time? Because I had a couple more things to say. 10:26. I sure have a habit of talking long. Ashley, is this beneficial for a non-grain flour like coconut or banana flour? I don't believe that. I don't know about banana flour, but I don't think with coconut flour that you need to do that. Coconut flour needs to sit a little bit just to absorb liquid, but it doesn't need soaking to prepare it for digestion because it's not a grain. It's just, coconut's good. Are there any other questions about what I'm talking about? And then I'll go on and say my last couple things I have planned. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for sharing. I've seen, as I've been talking, I've seen sharing going on. I appreciate it. Okay, we got a thumbs up from Emily, fantastic. So the last thing I wanted to say was actually to tell you all Happy Thanksgiving, and I have a picture for you. Not what we say about our blessings, but how we use them is the true measure of our Thanksgiving. So I love that quote. If anybody wants to take a screenshot. I'll be sharing this on our Facebook page too. Isn't it true? Isn't it true? I mean, we have so many blessings. We need to use them. And using them is the way for us to tell God that we truly are thankful. I mean, we can be thankful in our words. We can confirm our thanksgiving with our actions. Thank you, Sev. Thank you, Melissa. Glad you enjoyed that. Kit, love, good. Okay, well, we're about a half hour. So the last thing I wanted to do was, besides say goodbye, is Meg's here at Meg Eat Beautiful. She is not switching her Periscope a day early. She normally goes right after me on Wednesdays, but she will be at her usual time tomorrow, 10:30 Pacific. And I'm excited. I'm going to check it out, even though I'll be cooking in the kitchen. She is showing 3 ingredient crepes, and there's a surprise ingredient, and it's also allergy friendly. So definitely check that out at Meg Eat Beautiful. And Meg, if you could pop a comment, then anybody who's here is new can tap on your profile and then follow you so they'll get a notification. So can you just quickly do something in the comments? Great, there she is. So everybody tap and then you'll have the option to follow. Good. Okay, so I'm going to close here with just a couple housekeeping notes, which is number one, thank you so much for coming. Thanksgiving is a busy time, and so I just really appreciate spending this little bit of time with you today. And God bless you on your Thanksgiving preparations. If you're in the United States and celebrating with friends or family, just God bless all your preparations and time together. If you want to submit a question for a future Ask Wardee, you can do it on Twitter with the handle @TradCookSchool and use the hashtag AskWardee. You can also send it in to Wardee, W-A-R-D-E, at askwardee.tv. The replay of this is, of course, up on Periscope right now, so if you're watching the replay, hi, but it's also going to be on my blog, askwardee.tv, within 24 hours, and as I said, the notes will have the recipes and links that I've mentioned. Thank you so much for the continued love, and thanks, Meg, for inviting followers. And then one more side note. I've been recording my podcast on Periscope. I'd love it if you'd check it out. So I actually did it yesterday because of Thanksgiving week, but next week it will be on Thursday, and not sure what time, so make sure you're following @TradCookSchool, and then your phone or your device will give you a little notification that I'm on, and you can come join the fun. Thank you all. God bless you, and happy Thanksgiving.